You bougie bitches kill me. And if you don't get it together and drop these macho attitudes, you are never gonna have anybody bringing you anything, anywhere, any place, anytime, ever. Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking. All of you jealous, ugly bitches, can kiss my fantasy, very perfect black ass. And yes, William, today you're one of those bitches.
Hey y'all, and welcome back to the Barely Adulting Podcast, where we discuss news, relationships, pop culture, life issues, and so much more. I am your host, T. Marie. Now, if you have not done so already, you should already know what to do. Go ahead and like, subscribe, share, and download the podcast. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and leave a 5-star rating and also a review down below. If you're new here, welcome. I am so excited that you decided to tune in to the Barely Adulting family podcast and everything else. So welcome. I hope that you go ahead and binge watch all of the last episodes that we had dropped, and also just be back for next week's episode as well. So glad that you can join us. Now, outside of all of that, this is Black History Month. I hope you was extra black this month, and I hope that you are still supporting all those creators and creatives out there. So if you have not done so, you still have time, because guess what? Black History Month does not just start at February 1st and ends February 28th or sometimes February 29th, right? No, we are still going to support all throughout the year forever, basically. So don't stop supporting, don't stop showing love, and all of that good stuff, because we want to make sure that just like other communities are succeeding and being very successful in their crafts and things of that nature, we don't want to leave our community in the dust as well. So you got the power, you got the buying power. Go ahead and give that black business a try, okay? And give them some grace as well, because as many times you went to Walmart and you got some bad customer service and you went back, you can do the same thing to this black company, all right? No excuses, because we're the hardest on our own people. So get it together. Give people grace, and also business owners, get your ish together too. Alright? So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into our morning coffee segment, because we have a lot in store for our grown folks table talk. Now, according to the title, we're talking about sex, and all this other stuff, right? So with that being said, if you want your kids in the room, go ahead and let that happen. However, if you want to listen to it first and then go ahead and put it on, you can listen to it twice. I'm okay with that. I am totally fine with that. But anyway, let's go ahead and get to our morning coffee segment and then get on with the show.
I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all. I'm blacker than black, I'm blacker than black, yo, because I'm black, and I'm black.
Okay, everyone, so for this week's morning coffee, we're going to start off with the $1.9 trillion COVID relief package that was just sent to the Senate for review. So with that being said, the package includes the $1,400 stimulus check for anyone making under $75,000 yearly or annually, assistance for small businesses, money for the child care, aid for states and schools, increased support for vaccines, and also minimum wage being raised to $15. No Republicans supported this bill, by the way, and that also includes 2 Democrats, Maine Rep. Jared Golden and also Oregon Rep. Kurt Schrader. COVID cases rise to a total of 28,486,575 cases. This includes people dying from COVID at the number of 510,467. There have been vaccines administered, and that brings you to a total of 70,454,064. And of all of that, only 6.9% of Americans have been vaccinated. According to CNN, the U.S. carried out an airstrike earlier this week along the Iraqi-Syria border. So this was actually in response to attacks on American forces, and who were actually targeted was the Iranian-backed militia. They say up to a handful of people were killed in this airstrike that's been going back and forth, I guess. But it looks like to me that the American people who were military, whatever, I'm not gonna claim it, but whatever, they're basically saying like, we ain't no punks, so try me if you want to. That's what I'm getting from it, you know. But y'all read from it what you will. It's up everywhere. You can actually go look for it yourself. I mean, you might have a different opinion, but who knows. Anywho, in other news, Tiger Woods actually suffered from a car crash that happened earlier this week, or last week rather. And the car crash happened right outside of LA. First responders actually had to use the jaws of life to actually take him out of the car from the wreck. And the jaws of life is basically like a pry bar and access used to actually pull it away, you know. I'm pretty sure you can just imagine, right? So this is crazy because he just had back surgery not too long ago. Now he had to have surgery, of course, on his leg, foot, ankle, because, you know, of the serious injuries or whatnot. And in order to stabilize him, they actually had to put pins and, what was it? Like pins and needles and all that stuff, pins and screws in his foot. So we are praying for him, making sure that he's okay. They say that he's actually recovering quite well. As far as his career in golfing, I mean, things like this you really don't know. He is seen as one of the greatest, or if not the greatest, golf player there is. But as of right now, with all these injuries, especially this one right here on his leg, we just don't know. Now, and so much love for Black History Month. Of course, I have to bring you something about what's going on, especially in the media. So, 2 movies that I want y'all to check out, starring, or at least based on 2 beautiful Black women that just wonderful, wonderful people, right? At least I've known the both of them. I listen to their music, especially the latter. It's just amazing, right? So anyway, let me get into it. The United States versus Billie Holiday is the first movie. Robin Roberts, excuse me, why can't I say her name? Robin Roberts presents Mahalia is the second movie. If you don't know Billie Holiday and if you don't know Mahalia Jackson, you need to go do your research and you need to go ahead and just go play their music all week until you get it together, because these 2 women are icons. Let me tell you about the both of them for these movie roles that they're actually coming out with about these women. They were both in the height of the civil rights movement, and they used their voices for that reason, or their pull, or whatever it was. Like, Billie Holiday literally wrote a song called Strange Fruit. If you don't know what Strange Fruit is, I need you to go and listen to it. And not just listen to it, read the words. Internalize it, analyze it, do what you will, and figure out what she's trying to say if you can't figure it out since then. Go and talk to somebody that you know, older person, somebody, I don't know, but go talk to somebody that knows exactly what she's saying or lived through that moment. They'll tell you. Hopefully they tell you right, but they'll tell you. So listen to Strange Fruit. Mahalia Jackson, one of the greatest gospel singers. Billie Holiday, one of the greatest like jazz singers. Go check them out. So the United States versus Billie Holiday actually already came out. It's on Hulu. Please, please, please watch that. I am actually about to watch it myself and put that on. And the Robin Roberts presents Mahalia, that's coming out sometime in April, like April 3rd on Lifetime. And I believe it was April 3rd on Lifetime at like 8, 7 Central. So check that out, because I know that is going to be a great one, because that's going to be a biopic of her life and everything else. So if you need more information, go ahead, check Hulu out, check out Lifetime, and find out more information about those 2. But do your research. And of course, like, I can't leave us thinking this is all that I have for Black History Month. So what y'all gonna do is sit through this Black National Anthem, uplift every voice and sing, because it's only right, and it's the last day of February. So if you don't know the song, because I've heard that a lot, especially from the newer generation, that they don't know that we had a National Black Anthem or whatever, and they never heard of it and all this other stuff. We were taught this at a young age. Like in 4th grade, we stood up and sang this, and not the Pledge of Allegiance. We were singing this, okay? But anyway, y'all listen to this, and we're going to get right into the Grown Folks Table Talk. All right. So, stay tuned. We in this.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea.
Hey everyone, I have another special guest with us on the podcast this week. Could you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kai Michelle, and I am a sex blogger of the Good Sex blog.
Okay. And what do you usually talk about on the Good Sex blog?
So my sex blog is more so educational. I'm actually studying sex education right now. I'm getting my master's in sexology, and it's just really important for me to become a person that's really educating the masses, because comprehensive sex education is definitely needed for people as young as adolescents up into the oldest of the oldest person. We never stop learning, and it's just something that's really, really important on all aspects. So the Good Sex blog is an educational blog, or talk about everything as far as intimacy, breaking apart taboos, and also, in a sense, adding my own uniqueness to it by quoting R&B songs often.
All right. That is awesome, because I never really hear about people studying sexology at all. So that was really interesting for me. What made you get into that field in the first place?
So we can just take like a brief step back. People always tell you, like, find something that you're passionate about and you never have to work a day in your life, right? So who doesn't like sex? Like, we're sexual beings. We're sexual beings. We love to talk about it, listen to it in our music, watch it in our movies, sex appeal when you're out and about, sex sales in the stores. Like, it's something that's always around us, but yet we're a part of a generation and a society that likes to taboo, a lot of things that are sexual, that are surrounding sex. So with that being said, it was just always something that has always interested me. Never really knew what I could do with it before. In 2017, I ended up reading the book Art of Seduction by Robert Greene. And it basically, in this book, it broke down different seducer types, the type of seducer who you are, different types of seducers who one may fall a victim to. And that book was just so interesting, and it just intrigued so much in me. I wanted to do something with that book, but I didn't know what. I thought about creating a YouTube channel and breaking down the 17 seducer types, and kind of using, like, maybe celebrities and artists to try to relate them through, like, the different characters in the book. But it didn't really fit right at that time. So, time progresses, and I would do questionnaires on my Instagram story, sex questions, like After Dark with Kai Michelle. And I would get a lot of views on my stories. Like, I would, see a spike in my story views. It'd be like 1,000 people watching my stories and answering. And I'd be like, wow, people really, really like this. So right when quarantine hit this year, my best friend told me about a sexologist. Her name is Shan Boudram, and she had written a book.
Oh, I love her.
I love Shan Boudram. She's a Black sexologist, and The Game of Desire. And I went and I got the book, and I fell in love with the book. And then I called my best friend the next morning. I said, best friend, I think I really know what my passion is. It was crazy. It just came to me all at once. And I was like, I want to be a sexologist. And like a light went off in her head, and she got super excited with me. And we just started, like, planning out, like, how I could do this, how I could rebrand myself, how I could be an educator and a blogger, but still be myself,
Mhm.
And I was actually already kind of debating going to grad school, but I didn't know what to go to grad school for. So when that bright idea popped in my head, I then started looking for certifications to become a sex therapist or a sex educator. And then I came across my master's program. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get my master's in sex education. Everything just started falling in line for me.
That is awesome. Like, just to find your passion just like that and out of the blue, I love that. And you said already a couple things about taboo topics, right? And
Mm-hmm.
on this podcast, we love to talk about taboo topics because if
Mm-hmm.
no one's going to do it, we're going to talk about it, right? So
Right.
let's go ahead and shift the narrative, or just shift it a little bit, and talk about the taboo topics within the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know for a fact that a lot of us, not all, tend to grow up in a household where sex is not even on the table to be discussed at
Correct.
all. And if it is discussed, the daughters are being told, don't have sex. The
Mm-hmm.
sons are being told, go out there and have as much sex as you
Correct.
want, just don't bring home, don't get nobody pregnant.
Correct.
So how do you feel about, one, the stereotypes of that, or just the double standards rather of those two in general? And then we can go ahead and ask more questions. I don't want to ask too many and then we just get lost in all of this.
No, I don't like the double standard narrative in any situation, but especially in the narrative of the Black household, and your daughter needs to stay in the house. She shouldn't be having sex, and if she does have sex, she needs to be married, and then she can have kids. But son, it's probably going to happen, but if it does, here's protection. Just don't bring a baby home. And it just goes back to show you that the way sex education is taught to us in school, if we did learn it in health class or wherever, we didn't really have like a sex education class. But when it was taught to us, it has always been in favor of the male, like, male pleasure and what the male is going to get from it. Hence, girls don't have sex until you're married. You're married to reproduce. So a woman's pleasure early on is taught to her as, look, you're only here to do this for him. And for the boy, it's, okay, it's going to happen, but if it does, here's protection, and you need to do X, Y, Z. So I don't appreciate that double standard, because it's ill education, because comprehensive sex education needs to be taught on both ends. As humans, we are sexual beings. We become curious. And when your curiosity is suppressed, you're going to find other ways to let that out, so you can express it. So sometimes people leave the home and they start exploring, and they end up in a cycle of, testing different things, or, get involved in different things, falling and, flat on their face because they've been involved in some stuff that nobody ever taught them about before.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like the boys kind of got an upper hand because they were already told this is going to happen, but if it does, you need to do this. Or, they'll have a brother or a dad that's like, come talk to me if you have a problem. But girls, on the other hand, is you better not be doing that. So who am I as a human? And I'm feeling this tingle, and, I'm like, dang, like, this boy at school, he keeps touching my shoulder, and like, it's making me smile. It's making me glow and perk up. Like, why am I feeling like this? Because nobody teaches us about pleasure. So we wait till we start to get older and we're out on our own. And for the first time, we get to experience it, like the first time you have a soda. I don't even know if that's like, a good example, but first time you have a soda, it's like, ooh, but that was good. I want some more, instead of like letting both of the children or the adolescents, teenagers in the household know, look, sex is going to happen. If it does X, Y, Z, you only prepared one sex for it, not the opposite. And that's not fair.
That is very factual. And I think I still have a problem with the fact that a lot of parents don't put enough emphasis on it, or in the fact that they're not the first ones to bring it up, because a lot of times these children are learning it from their peers versus
Correct.
learning it from their parents. And do you feel like their parents should be the first point of contact when it comes to sex ed? Because a lot of students or a lot of kids, they don't hear about it until they get into high school and they hear it what their freshman year, and that's it. Because I know you said that your school only talked about it a little bit, but it was more pleasurable for the guy, right? I know for me personally, if I can like think back on that time period, it was my freshman year, yes, but my teacher was a female, and she made sure that we knew that the female could get pleasure too,
Correct.
and not just the guys, which was something different that you usually hear, because when you look on TV and they're doing a sex education class, it's always the guys is being catered to, the guys is doing this. So it was kind of a different spin on things when I actually heard another woman telling impressionable women and men in the class, hey, this is not just for men, this is for women too. It does feel good. It's okay. Wear condoms. Both of y'all, we have options. We have the
Yeah.
female condom, right? We have the regular condom that usually people get, the common condom, I guess. But she made sure that we knew it's okay if you do it. If it happens, just use protection, or it's not. She made it normal in a sense
Right.
for everybody.
So when it does come to teaching sex education, I feel like it should definitely start in home. I feel like everything should start in the home. Just, that's where you're deeply rooted at. That's where you'll always go. If you're happy, if you're sad, you're going to go home. And, home, sometimes it doesn't have to be like a physical house. Sometimes home could just be mom or somebody that's familiar. So I feel like sex education should definitely start with your family, with your parents. It shouldn't be so taboo. You should be able to come to your parents and have that open conversation. My mom, she definitely made sex feel like, it was a bad thing. It was kind of like, you better not be doing X, Y, Z. Or, even growing up, like sitting in the living room watching a movie and the sex scene would come on and like all the adults would be, y'all better turn y'all head. Or,
Right.
If a song comes on, like, they turn that part down or tell us to leave out the living room. So that's already creating that fence that, okay, whatever this is bad, So when you start to have those feelings or those questions, you feel a little weird, because it's like, okay, so I've been taught that this was bad, so I shouldn't be feeling like this. And I feel like that should start in the home. I don't have kids, but I know, like, I know I'm a sex educator, and I'm in school, and a lot of my books are sex educational. Some of them have reproductive organs on the outside of it. And one of my friends had actually asked me about my books one day. They're like, Kai, whenever you have kids, what are you going to do with all these books? And I was like, I'm going to have them in a library. And they're like, well, what are you going to do if your kid comes in, the kitchen, you cooking, and they ask you what's on the book? I was like, I'm going to tell them that's a penis, so I'll put the book back. I'm not going to hide it, and I'm not going to be like, over the top, like, oh, you shouldn't be looking at that, or you don't need to know what that is. That kid is inquisitive at that moment, and it's not that I'm teaching my child porn or anything, but it's an educational moment. It's a teachable moment. It's not a sexual moment, but it's a learning moment, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. So based off of your books and just your knowledge and I guess your own opinion, what do you think about telling your kids at a young age? Like, how soon is too soon, or is there a such thing as too soon when it comes to sex education? Because I know at probably age 3 or so, that's when babies are trying to figure out what's the difference between their body parts and another person's body parts, and just trying to feel themselves out.
I think that right now is probably too early for me to tell, because I may have a child that matures later than earlier. Questions that I remember asking my mom when I was really, really young. My mom would get in the shower around me. Like, if I was in her room, she would get in the shower and have a towel on. And I remember being a kid, and I asked her, like, Mom, what are those? I was talking about her breasts. And she told me, oh, these are my boobs. And I was like, oh, okay. And then my mom took that as a teachable moment. And she told me, like, you'll have these one day, but not right now. And she just gave me, like, that kind of talk. And I was really young. So I feel like if they can ask the questions, they can get the answer, you know,
Right.
because I don't have to go and give you a full on educational history on your body and what it's going to do and what it's going to transform into, because you're just a kid. You're going to ask questions. You know, kids ask questions like, what's that? It's toilet tissue. Where does toilet tissue come from? It comes from a tree. Well, what kind of tree? You know, like kids are inquisitive. So why stop their learning experience right there, you know? So the reason why the kid is asking, oh, mom, what is this? Is because it's in their face and they see it. You know, somebody may kiss on the TV and they may want to know, why did they kiss? Oh, they're in love, you know? So it starts right there, but then later on, it'll be more questions. And if you start a lie now, you're going to have to continue that lie, or you're going to have to clean up your education, and they're going to be confused. I don't want my children confused.
No, that makes perfect sense, because honestly, it's starting them out in a way where they're not, like you said, confused, and they're thinking like, okay, well, mommy said this, but I see this going on, especially if you're comparing and contrasting what you may see on TV that pops up, but mommy said something else. So now you're questioning, okay, is mommy telling the truth, or is this telling the truth? Like, which one is it? Instead of actually growing up and actually having that knowledge. And I guess in a sense, a lot of parents are uncomfortable with the topic and don't
They
know
are.
how to approach the topic when it comes to teaching their kids. Because when I grew up, all I heard from my father was, don't come home with no babies. You ain't stopping school. You're going to be taking care of them. All this other stuff, right? Which we
Correct.
typically hear from our parents, right? Like, you still going to take care of this baby. Don't come home with no babies. Don't get pregnant without the bam. But I don't know the first thing of getting pregnant. I don't know, like, even
Get
to,
there.
you know, it's just like, oh, well, am I just going to pop up one day and just be pregnant? Like, I don't know how to stop that. How am I supposed to do this? Don't have sex. Okay.
Right.
Why shouldn't I have sex? It's not the fact that I am going against what you're saying. I'm just curious. I want to know because
Correct.
I don't know. And what, like, it's not like I'm challenging what you're saying, or saying that, oh, you're not telling me the truth, you're lying to me and all this stuff. No, it's just a curiosity, just like a 3-year-old is curious about their toes or whatever it is. It's human.
Anything. And you should be able to answer them instead of depriving them that.
Mm-hmm. So is it typically normal at that point for children just to be like, okay, you know, like, I know we talked about it, but when does that typically start happening for those who are like, because, you know, like, we're in our millennial age group where a lot of us are having kids now, already have kids, and they just don't know how to approach the situation. Like, what's a better way to approach it and say, hey, like, I know that you are curious about this, but let me talk to you about it. You know, just like your mom said, hey, these are my boobs. You'll get some one day, and then just left it at that. I'm pretty sure you were satisfied with the answer.
Mhm.
So
This is those things where we all already know we're millennials. We've heard our parents say it, and parents are going to say it forever. Don't tell me how to raise my child, correct?
right.
So with that being said, I can't tell anybody how to raise their child. But I know for me, when mine's asked, I'll tell them the answer. But, you know, my cousin or my neighbor, they may not believe in that. They may believe in, oh, you know, don't worry about this. This is for adults, you know. But that's their way of teaching. That's their education. That's why it's important for me as a sex educator now is to continue to put materials out there into the world so people can learn how to have these conversations where they're not hard or where they're not full of shame and taboo, to where it may be easier for them to have it. I feel like if a kid is inquisitive about something, you should tell them for what you feel is appropriate, because what I may feel what's appropriate for my child may not be the same thing for the next child. Hell, it may not be the same thing for my mom. My mom may, you know, sit there and watch me tell her grandchild something, and she'll be like, Kai, you shouldn't tell your kid that. But I'm just going to be like, Mom, this is my kid. You raised me, and I'm fine, you know, so let me raise mine. So, again, if it's brought to me and if I feel it's appropriate for my child, then I'll tell them. Some parents, and even in the space of being a sex educator and studying it, people in my classroom, some of them may feel the same way, some of them may not. I remember seeing, I think it was on something on Facebook, this girl had a sex toy and her child found the sex toy and came into the living room and asked her what the sex toy was. And, you know, she lied and said it was something, but she was so embarrassed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a funny story. And in my head, I was like, I would do the same thing. But I had that conversation with other people, and some people were like, well, I'm just going to tell my kid that, you know, it's a dildo. And again, I'm one of those people that firmly believes in, like, you got to do what works for you. So I'm like, okay, I understand that. I don't knock you. I don't think what you're doing is wrong, and I don't think, you know, nothing of it. But I just know for me, at that point in time, I wouldn't teach my 5-year-old, you know, oh, this is a dildo. Well, what's this, Mom? Well, it's a sex toy. Well, what do you need a sex toy for? You know, like, I wouldn't want to go down that aisle with my kid. I would just tell my kid, that's my toy, give it back, and I'm going to put it up somewhere else and pray that the kid don't find it no time soon.
Oh, child. Would be terrible.
Whose child is right?
Look,
Whose child is right?
I wouldn't even know what to do if I had a child and they were like, oh, Mom, what's this? And you're just holding it and just playing with it like a sword or something. I'm like, hold on.
Hold on, what did you bring that back?
Right. No, go ahead, put that down. But we'll talk about it when you're older, sweetheart. It's okay. Like, just shoot, that's
about it
Mommy's
right now.
Right, that's Mommy's toy, not baby's toy.
Correct. And I think that answers that question for you. Like, you know, when is a good time to start telling them? It's all going to depend on you and what the situation may be.
That is true. Because I can see myself now just doing that and then calling my friends afterward, like, y'all, guess what just happened? I'm traumatized.
I'm traumatized, not the kid, but me.
And they won't know until later on. I'll probably tell them when they older, like, hey, guess what? You did play with this when you was younger. I don't know. Maybe I'll say it, maybe I won't. Who knows? But it just depends on our relationship too, I guess, at that point. But I know that I'm going to kind of shift the topic yet again, right? Because you did a little bit about pornography, right? And I know a lot, I'm going to just throw it out there. I know a lot of people who are addicted to porn because they started at a young age. And some people, I guess, use that in a sense where they are aroused or they can't get aroused by themselves without watching porn. So how young is too young to start watching porn? And is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it like one of those things like, okay, you got to do what you feel is right type of thing? Because, you know, I've heard stories where, let's say boys, for instance, just for an example, boys as young as 7 years old, they'll see images and they'll keep watching it and they'll keep watching it. And that's all they're doing. But they've carried that addiction on into their growing stages where they're 27, 28 years old and they're still just watching porn as in every day and they can't get aroused without it and all this other stuff. Like, when is it too soon for that to be introduced to a child? Because sometimes we can't like predict when it is introduced, right? But if we could, when is too soon and when is it the right way to introduce it, I guess, if that makes sense?
I feel like porn is going to be stumbled upon on its own. Again, this is just like my own personal belief. I don't feel like one could really introduce porn, but then again, one could introduce porn, you know, like I remember coming across like a porn DVD in the garage at my cousin's house, and me and my cousins were like, oh my God, what is this? Put in the DVD player. Let's see. Oh my God. Like, you know, we introduced it to each other because we were being bad and mischievous and we seen big booty, whatever. And we was like, ooh, what's this? What's, you know, we were being, you know,
Your curiosity.
We're being kids, you know, so we introduced that to each other. And I think like when you're at that age, yeah, it may be early to be introduced to it, but heck, you're curious about it. The adults are always telling you to turn your head when the sex scene comes on, you know, on the TV. So now you finally got your time to shine to figure out why they keep telling us to turn our heads. And you put it in the player and now you're looking like, oh, that's intimidating. But, you know, you're a kid and nobody's explained anything to you. So you're looking at it like, oh, okay, this is weird. Or, you know, you may be the cousin that's like, oh, I want to watch it again. Or you may be the cousin like, oh, that's disgusting. Turn that shit off. I'm good. Right.
Right.
So that's when it comes to that. As far as like watching porn, I feel two ways about it. So pornography is a performative sex. It's not realistic. You know, you got the lights, you got actors, you know, you have effects, you know, you got, you know, fake squirting, you got, you know, people on sex pills, so they're able to, you know, just have that libido fed up for a long time, sexual enhancement. So they're just up. So people, too much of anything could be bad. So you have people obsessing with the thought of like this performative sex, like the first time I have sex, oh my God, it's going to be like that. And it's not going to be like that, you know? Just like when you go to McDonald's and you go through the drive-thru and you're looking at the menu and you're like, oh my God, that burger looks so good. I want that burger. But it's just the advertisement of it. It's the performance of the food. It's to draw you in, to entice you. You get that burger. It don't look like that. The burger is about as big as the inside of your hand. The cheese ain't melted. And you just, you know, you like, man, okay. But if you've had like a real burger, you know, somebody made at home for you, you know, it's juicy. You see everything getting put on it. It looks like what's put in front of you. And what people have to sometimes understand, like sex is going to look like what's put in front of you, what you desire, what you like, you know, like, and I hate that I'm relating hamburgers to sex right now, but when you dress your burger up, you know what you want on it. You know what you like, you know what you don't like.
Right.
You can make that burger real good, so it's good to you. And that's the same thing when it comes to sex and sexual pleasure. You know what you like, you know what you don't like. You know if you want to tell your partner to slow down or speed up, you're moving too fast, or, you know, that hurts, or what about applying pressure right here? You're dressing your experience up to make sure that it's pleasurable, not only for you, but for your partner, and you're being communicative to that.
That makes sense. Because I know, like, even like you were saying with the burger analogy, right? Advertisement, when we're talking about like McDonald's, for instance, those burgers do not look like that on McDonald's at all.
They never look like that.
At all. Like they have some special whatever. I don't want to throw it out, but it's like special sauce or something like that. They have like paint and all. Everything is just not what it seems, because yes, the advertisement, they make you want to look real and all that other stuff. But at the end of the day, when you bite into that burger, do you really want to bite into a McDonald's burger? No. But it looks so good on the advertisement. I'm still not going to eat it. But you know, that was my prerogative at the end of the day.
Correct.
Oh my goodness. Really? So sorry about that.
So,
I told you like this girl. But even then, like I've known people in relationships, let's say. And that's like a major issue where their partner is just so into the porn scene and so into this particular thing or whatever that they're not meeting the needs of their partner at the end of the day.
mm-hmm.
So what can we do as the partner telling the other partner, like, hey, like something needs to give at that point, because you know it's fighting an addiction at the end of the day. So what can we do to introduce that partner to another way of, you know, going about it, stopping, I guess, the number of times it happens or something? Does that make sense? Because I know a lot of people actually deal with that. So how can that partner actually, one, address that with their significant other and saying, hey, like this is an issue. I don't feel like I am enough for you because of this. I don't feel like you're attracted to me because of this, you know?
And some people will definitely feel like that, but they shouldn't feel, well, I don't want to say they shouldn't, because people are allowed to feel however they want to. Their feelings are valid. But just because somebody masturbates or watches porn doesn't mean that they're any less interested into their partner. It's something that they like, you know, like if somebody likes to smoke hookah, they like to smoke hookah. If somebody likes to smoke weed, they smoke weed. But if it's becoming a problem, then it should become a conversation. And if it's an addiction, just like any addiction, you know, that person may need to seek help if it's that bad, you know.
Right.
But if it's something that talked about, then it could be talked about. But if it's something that somebody just likes to indulge in every once in a while, there shouldn't be any shame to that. if it's something that your partner likes, then try to talk to them so you can kind of understand, like, why they like this, or is it an addiction? Is it a problem? Or is it even too much of a big deal to have an issue with it when it comes to that? A lot of people also, they masturbate because they're still exploring their self. I am a big advocate. I believe that everybody should masturbate, or if they've never masturbated before in their life, they should. Because how can you communicate to your partner how you like to be pleased if you don't know what you like to be pleased by, somebody could ask you, like, how do you want to have sex, or how do you like this, or how do you like to be, treated or touched or caressed? And somebody may say, I don't know, but you should know, because it's your body and you want to orgasm. You want it to be as pleasurable for you as it is for the next person. So you may have to masturbate or, explore solo sex, solo pleasure. So you're able to do that. And it's your body. So that's why I feel two ways about that, because if it is an addiction, maybe that person needs to seek help. But if the person just likes to look at porn every once in a while, there's nothing wrong with that. I look at porn every once in a while. I'm not addicted.
So how do you feel about semen retention? Because I've heard it being something that improves fertility, sexual pleasure, physical touch. So what are your thoughts about semen retention? And first, could you tell
You said
semen retention?
You said female retention?
No, semen retention. Have you heard of it?
Semen retention, like when they don't bust?
Basically.
So like they're holding it back?
Yes.
I don't think that's healthy for the man. Isn't that where blue balls come from?
Well,
from like not. Teach me something. Teach me something, sister girl.
Well, I know that there's a lot of studies on semen retention and how it improves fertility, sexual pleasure, and physical touch. So we were just talking about how masturbation, if it goes like down a negative route, it would be more so towards like the addiction part of it, right? Where you're always doing it, you're always, just releasing for layman's terms, right? Whereas the opposite of it is where you're holding back, and with holding yourself, where it's not always about sex. It's more so like, okay, let me go ahead and think about something else that's not on the other head, right? Like my brain and all that other stuff, right? So studies show, like I said, it improves fertility and sexual pleasure. So if you're always pleasuring yourself, that pleasure kind of dilutes. I don't know if that's a good word for it or whatever, but after doing something for so long, your pleasure kind of changes in a sense. It's probably not the same as it would be if you're holding it back and then a female comes and touches your shoulder, you get aroused by it versus it's just
so kind of like teaching themselves like some sort of like grounding, or like a way to withhold. Maybe that's how they look at it. That's something new for me, which is okay. But like the way that you explain it, maybe they do that as a sense of trying to like hold back, refrain for something, be strong, like fasting in a sense.
So that would actually bring me to my next question then. Do you believe that men can be celibate or practice abstinence? Because that is a part of semen retention, because they're not actively participating in sex.
So are they okay? So with semen retention, are they participating in intercourse at any time or no?
I guess it depends on if they're celibate or abstinent. So intercourse, no. I'm going to say no for this. And I'm just saying that they're practicing avoiding any type of ejaculation. So yeah, you can abstain from it altogether, or it can just be like no type of penetration whatsoever for a period of time until you meet your partner or until you get married or something like that.
So yeah, if they're like if they're not having sex at all and they're just abstinent or celibate, whichever one that they choose to be, then I guess it's not a bad thing. But if they're like, because it's my first time hearing it, but if they're actually like engaging in intercourse and then they're getting to that point and they're stopping, like I was saying, maybe that's just like a sense of them learning how to gain control or however. That's new, like I said, because what's the point of having the sex if you both aren't going to finish?
See, that's what I think is
and
they're not having it at all then. Because if it's more so retention, because if you get into that mindset and you're in that place, you wouldn't put yourself in a situation where you can, ejaculate.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. So definitely that's something, yeah. If that's something that they're doing, then I definitely do believe that, both sexes, men and women, can be abstinent and celibate. It's not something that's just specific to one gender.
Right. And I guess that's just a wraparound question, I guess, because it goes back to when you're first taught about sex. It's more so women, you have to stay celibate, you have to stay a virgin, you have to stay abstinent, whatever it is, right? And you can't do anything, right? Versus men are encouraged to go into that sexual act. So when the question arises, a lot of people I see personally, I'm not going to say everybody, but some people do turn up their nose and like, oh, well, he just denied me from having, denied me sex. Like if a female comes up and asks a guy like, oh yeah, let's have sex or whatever, you already expect him to say yes for whatever reason. And if he chooses not to, it's an issue for some reason. And I feel like
and that's not
more like that.
Women should be held to the same standard men are when they are denied sex. If a man is denied sex, then okay, hey, if he come back and beg for it, it's like he just didn't hear a no. He didn't hear a no. But if a woman is denied sex, we should be held to the same standard. And that's like what I said in the beginning. Double standards. I don't like them. I don't want to believe in them, but they're there. They're there. So with that being said, that's the same thing when it comes to, like you said, being abstinent or celibate. You can be abstinent, celibate. It doesn't matter what your gender is. I mean, and that just wraps around to all of them. It doesn't matter your gender. No is no. Consent is consent. And that's just it. If I tell you, no, I don't want to have sex or I don't want to do something I don't want to do, you need to respect that boundary. And you need to understand that it's not about you. It's not a rejection thing. It's just something that I don't want to do. Don't try to manipulate me or, change my mind, because now you're getting a little aggressive and that's uncomfortable.
Now, I know on your blog, because I read a little bit of it before our interview, and you spoke a little bit about this theory. I'm going to call it a theory, and fries. So it's like an acronym for something. Could you tell everyone what that is, fries, if you remember what I'm talking about?
My acronym on
consent and everything else.
Right.
Yes.
Girl, I do so much education. Refresh my memory, please.
Okay, so in your blog, I was reading, you were talking about different ways of consent, right? And I have to pull it up again so I can have the words right. But you were speaking about how consent is for both parties. And even if you're in the act of having sex, like if you take off the condom, but it was agreed to have a condom on, that's not consensual sex. You're not fully in it. And just different things like that.
It's not. That's not consensual. Yeah. So somebody's telling you no, and or if you're agreeing to have sex one way, you're, as a woman, you're under the impression that, hey, we're going to have sex and we're having sex with a condom, but you take that off and you decide to go in and go raw. That is, to me, that's sexual. That's sexual battery. And actually, yesterday I had seen on social media that California is trying to pass a law that if you do that to somebody, you can be charged with sexual battery.
Yes, I just saw
because that is not the consent you were granted.
Right. And I'm pretty sure that's happened plenty of times where someone says, "Oh, the condom doesn't feel good, so I'm gonna just go ahead and take it off." But that wasn't what we agreed upon. And I actually found it on your blog. So fries being F for freely given, R reversible, I informed, E enthusiastic, and S specific.
Correct. Okay. Yeah. Girl, you had to bring that back to me. That was a pop quiz. That I think that article was probably from last year sometime. But yes, most definitely. At any time you can revoke consent. You know, that was the R. At any time you can revoke it, and you can let that be known. Like, hey, yes, I may have said yes at first, but now I'm uncomfortable. I want to stop. To be informed, definitely letting that person know, like, hey, I said we use a condom to have sex. Therefore, if you take that condom off, that was not consent. Therefore, no consent is a rape. Being enthusiastic about sex. If I sat there and I told you, no, I don't want to have sex, and you keep badgering me with the question, blah, 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 and I finally say, okay, yes, that's not enthusiastic. That's the E. That should give you the understanding that, hey, this girl doesn't want to have sex, or he's not enthused about this, maybe I should chill. And then being specific, if I couldn't give you consent, like the perfect example was the girl laying drunk at the party, and a sign said, like, I'm too drunk to say yes, then I'm too drunk to say no, you know. So being specific, straight to the point. Do you want to have sex? No. Okay, that's it. Do you want to have sex? Yes. You know, that's a clear to the point. Yes, I want to do this. Don't sit there. But however, don't sit there and peer pressure this person into being non-enthusiastic about saying yes.
That is facts. Like, I've known.
You got to freely give it.
Right. And I've known stories, I've been told stories, you know, girls talk and guys talk and all that of just their sexual experiences and whatnot. And I've known people to go and, for instance, take the condom off while having sex, or they're kind of drunk. So they say, oh, well, she's not super drunk. She's just a little tipsy or whatever. So I'm gonna just say, we're just gonna say F it. Or even females talking about guys like, oh yeah, well, he's fine. Like, he's gonna take it anyway. It's that I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it. Rape culture that comes with it.
Yeah.
Because people don't define what consent is at all. And now that everybody is defining it, now people are feeling uncomfortable, like, oh, well, you know, they're just doing too much. They're just doing too much. That's not it. That's not that. No, like, if this happened, own up to it. I'm not saying that you got to put yourself on Front Street and go straight to the police officer and say, look, I did it. No, I'm not saying that exactly. What I am saying is, if it is, or if it comes a time where it's some kind of uncomfortability, if the lines were blurred or whatever, have a conversation. You can have a conversation prior to all of this and say, hey, this is good. Some people go as far as like signing papers, like, you're not going to get me. So go ahead, sign this right here.
I have heard of that before. I've heard of people creating like consent forms. I've actually seen it go, social media is so fun. I've seen it go viral on social media, and people were like, what are your thoughts on this? And it was basically like a consent form for sex. And it was so many back and forth, but I was like, I could see this going good and I can see this going bad. Because even if I do sign this consent form that I want to have sex with you, but then during that act I say stop and you don't stop, then that is me reversing. I'm revoking that. I don't want to do this anymore. But because I signed this waiver, you can hold that over my head, you know, so it can go so many ways.
Yeah, and then you're also put in a situation where you're not believed. And if it does go, God forbid, that direction where you say stop and it does not stop, regardless if you're a male or a female, right? You go and speak up about it, but you have this consent form, or you don't have a form at all, where you're just saying, well, I said no, but somebody saw you leaving the party and you was excited about leaving. Like, that doesn't mean that I want to have sex with that person. And I know that is so many, especially guys, who don't come forward after, you know, being in a situation like this, where they don't want to go that far with a person, yet it still happens because they feel like they're not going to be believed. Just the same female, right? It's crazy. It's really crazy.
It is. It can be a slippery slope with the wrong people. But we just got to continue to have the right people that will continue to push the envelope to have a voice behind it, to have the rights behind it, you know.
Mm-hmm. So how can you be a good friend if you see your friend doing something they have no business doing, or you are just witnessing something that is like, hold on, wait, this kind of looks a little sketchy. How can you approach your friend, even if it's a good friend, it could be your best friend or whatever, but you don't want to necessarily rub them the wrong way? How do you approach them and say, hey, look, this is not okay?
As far as what?
As far as that type of behavior, if you're going into a situation where your friend and their significant other, their partner, the person that they're with at the time is not necessarily agreeable with the actions that they're taking place, even if it's like touching that person the wrong way and you witness it,
Mm-hmm.
or yeah, let's just stop at that. Touching that person the wrong way. They might just be fondling and stuff. And the other person's like, no, I don't like that. Yet that person doesn't take that as a hint to stop at all. But you're witnessing it, looking from the outside in. How do you approach your friend and say, hey, look, this is not a good thing. Stop what you're doing, that without offending them, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. If you see your friend doing something they have no business doing, then I don't think that offending them should be the majority of your worry.
Mm-hmm.
It should probably be get them to not do what they're doing, if I'm answering this correctly. But then that also just boils down to just the type of person somebody is, or the type of people you may not want to associate yourself anymore. If they're going to create a heinous crime, you may want to try to separate yourself from that, because you may be there to stop them that one time, but how do you know they've never done this before, or that they won't act again?
Right. I mean, that's true. I mean, some people do value their friendships, but a lot of times people don't speak up and say anything at all. And
And that's unfortunate, because they really should. They really should.
it is true. Well, do you have any last and final thoughts? I know this went by like super fast. It seems like
It did go by fast. No, I think this was cool. I haven't done an interview in a long time, so I really appreciated this.
Oh, no problem. Oh, wait, before we go, I had actually one more question for you, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
wrap this up really fast after this, right? So I know that some people may not know the difference between clitoral orgasms and vaginal orgasms, and how that affects the woman's body and everything else. Like, which one? This is a very loaded question.
So, like penetrative
Yeah,
orgasms and orgasms.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I can't remember right now, but we're just going to. So I'm not going to hit you with percentages, but there is a good number of women who have never experienced an orgasm. There is a good number of women who have experienced them. Some women may not experience an orgasm through penetrative sex, but they may experience an orgasm through clitoral stimulation. And that's for me where I feel like, sex toys are really good for exploring that and experiencing that. Your clitoris has over 8,000 nerve endings in it. So you may have not experienced the orgasm by having penetrative sex, but that doesn't mean that your sex was bad. Because having an orgasm, you don't have to always have an orgasm to have pleasurable sex. That's rule number one. But if you do want to experience an orgasm and you'd like to try to experience one yourself, you can definitely achieve that through clitoral stimulation. You don't have to use a sex toy. You can use your hands. You can walk your partner through it. They can, stimulate your clitoris while they penetrate you, or however you want to do it. But it's definitely multiple ways that you could achieve that orgasm if you want to.
So if you achieved an orgasm with one partner, but not the other, but still is satisfied, is that still considered good sex?
Good sex is what you classify it as. what I classify good sex for me at that moment may not be good sex for the next person if they experience it the same exact way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've had great sex where I didn't orgasm, but it was amazing. You know, some people beg to differ, but at the end of the day, what works for me and my sexual pleasure is what works for me.
Sounds good. Okay. I think that was the last question for me. But like I said, we actually went by pretty fast, and this is a pretty great interview. I really enjoyed you coming on and sharing your knowledge and having this conversation with me, because like I said, it's very taboo, especially in our community, to talk about sex, especially at a young age, older age. Shoot, now, like, we still can't talk, most of us can't talk to our parents about sex, so we'll just shiver up when it's a sex scene on the TV still, you know? So I do appreciate you coming on and just breaking some of those barriers as well, and just having that conversation, because we can actually make it to where it's not is no longer taboo. It's more of a conversation that we can actually have, like maybe not at the dinner table, but maybe, you know, in the living room or something like that, you know? So I do appreciate you coming on for that.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. And everyone else, thank you so much for tuning in. We are actually going to wrap this up, and I hope that I see you next week. So stay tuned. Bye.
All right.
Be sure to download, like, and subscribe each time a new episode is dropped. Follow the podcast on Instagram at Barely Adulting Pod, and share with friends and family. This is your host, T. Marie, signing off. Until next week, thanks for tuning in.